We're about to dive into this incredible Supreme Court case. Seriously, it has everything. A hidden family, a secret deal, and a battle for an inheritance that went on for decades. It's this amazing story about what happens when a family falls apart, and the courts have to figure out, what's actually fair. At the heart of it all is this one really human question. Imagine this. A guy with 3 different families dies, and he doesn't leave a will. Who gets the money? Who gets the property? The law has to step in and sort out this huge mess. But what if one part of the family tries to secretly cut everyone else out? Just pretend they don't exist? Okay, so to really get what's going on, you have to meet the man who started it all, Lupo Mariategui. He died way back in 1953. And let's just say the family he left behind was complicated. It was anything but simple.
So Lupo's life created this really complex family tree. Okay, so his first wife, Eusebia, she passed away. Then he had a daughter with his second wife, Flaviana. After that, around 1930, he gets married again, this time to Filipa, his third wife. And then, bam, 1953, he dies without a will. So you've got these 3 totally separate family lines, and right there, that's the setup for a huge fight.
All right, so let's break down who's who in this whole drama. From marriage number 1, Lupo had 4 kids. From the second, just 1 daughter. And then from his third marriage to Filipa Velasco, he had 3 more children, Jacinto, Julian, and Paulina. Now you're going to want to remember those 3 names because they are the ones who end up having to fight for everything they're owed.
So after Lupo died, things were actually kind of quiet for a while, for years in fact. But then 1967 happens, and something goes down that kicks off a legal battle that would go on for decades, a total firestorm.
Here's what happened. The kids and grandkids from Lupo's first 2 marriages, they all got together, and they signed this legal document, basically a deed. What it did was take a really valuable piece of their dad's land and split it up. But here's the kicker. They only split it up among themselves.
And this is the whole point of the story. Jacinto, Julian, and Paulina, you remember, the kids from the third marriage, they were completely, totally cut out. They got nothing. 0. Not a single piece of that property.
Well, you can bet that when the third family found out what happened, they weren't just going to roll over and accept it. No way. In 1973, they filed a lawsuit to get what was rightfully theirs. But the other side, well, they had a bunch of legal tricks up their sleeves. Basically a whole obstacle course designed to stop them.
Okay, so hurdle number 1 was huge, but also kind of simple. The other families basically said, hey, prove that Lupo and Filipa were ever legally married. Because, you see, nobody could find a marriage certificate. And if there was no marriage, then were their kids even legitimate heirs? It's a massive question.
And that, of course, leads right into the second big problem. Without that piece of paper, the kids from the first 2 families argued, look, Jacinto, Julian, and Paulina can't prove they're legitimate, and if they're not legitimate, they have absolutely no right to inherit anything. See how that works?
And then there was the final roadblock. Time. Remember, that secret deal went down in 1967. The lawsuit wasn't filed until 1973. So the defense's argument was simple. You're too late. The statute of limitations ran out. The window to sue is closed. In legal speak, they said the claim had prescribed.
So think about it. No marriage certificate, their legitimacy is being questioned, and there's a ticking clock. Man, the odds were just stacked against the third family. But this is where the story gets really good. The Supreme Court gets involved, and they just start, one by one, untangling every single legal knot the other side had tied. So let's break down exactly how they pulled it off.
This is where the court's thinking was just brilliant. See, the defense was trying to say this whole lawsuit was an action for recognition. That's basically a case to prove you're someone's child, and it has a really strict deadline. But the court said, nope, that's not what this is. They said this is an action for partition. It's a claim by someone who's already a co-owner, and they just want their share. And the most important part? That right, the right to ask for your share as a co-owner, it never, ever expires.
Okay, so what about that missing marriage certificate, right? Well, the court pulled out this really powerful legal idea. The presumption of marriage is pretty cool, actually. The law basically says, hey, if a man and a woman live together and everyone in their community thinks they're husband and wife, then we're going to assume they're legally married, even if you can't find the paperwork.
And the court's whole reason for this is based on a really important idea in society.
The Supreme Court even said it themselves, and I'm quoting here, that every intendament of the law leans toward legalizing matrimony. Why? Because marriage is seen as a cornerstone of society. So since witnesses came forward and said, yeah, Lupo and Felipe lived like husband and wife, the court said, that's good enough for us. We're presuming the marriage was valid.
And once you have a valid marriage, the next domino falls perfectly into place. If the marriage is legally presumed, then the children from that marriage, Jacinto, Julian, and Paulina, are by definition legitimate children. And if they're legitimate children, then they are legal heirs. Simple as that. They have an undeniable right to their father's property.
So what this means is that all the kids from all 3 marriages were now officially co-owners. You can think of it like a pie. They all own the whole pie together, but it hasn't been sliced up yet. No one has their own specific piece. Legally, they're all in it together.
So, the big question is, did that secret deal the first 2 families made count as them claiming the whole thing for themselves? The court's answer was a big fat no. Apparently, the legal bar for one co-owner to take everything is super high. You have to openly repudiate the co-ownership. That means you have to basically stand up and tell the other owners to their faces, this isn't our property anymore, it's my property. Doing something in secret, yeah, that doesn't cut it.
And this was the knockout punch for the defense. The court didn't just say the secret deal was invalid, they called it what it was, fraud. And that changes everything. Because with fraud, that legal clock, that statute of limitations, it doesn't start ticking when the fraud happens. It starts ticking when the victims discover the fraud. So for Jacinto, Julian, and Paulina, the clock started right before they sued in 1973. They weren't too late after all. They were right on time.
So with every single one of those legal hurdles just demolished, the Supreme Court was finally ready to lay down its verdict. They were ready to bring some justice and clarity to this fight that had torn a family apart for so long.
And the ruling was crystal clear. First, the court said yes, Jacinto, Julian, and Paulina are legitimate heirs, period. Second, that secret deal from 1967, it's completely void. Gone. And this is the big one. All the children and descendants of Lupo from all 3 families get equal shares. The first 2 families were ordered to give back the shares they tried to take.
So what's the big lesson here? What's the takeaway? This case is just this perfect example of a court choosing what's right over what's technically convenient. They looked past a missing piece of paper and a deadline to get to the actual truth of the matter. The final verdict sends this really powerful message: the law cares more about fairness and family than it does about legal loopholes that are used to cheat people. And that really just leaves us with one last thing to think about. The story of the Mariategui family is just such a powerful reminder of how messy family and inheritance can get. And it makes you wonder, right? It makes you ask this really big question. When family loyalty just completely fails, how is the law supposed to step in and decide what fair even means?